Farmers are going through a really tough time this election, and the main reason for this is because of Brexit. And it's been well publicised that farmers are really struggling, predominantly because of Brexit. But these problems existed, some of these problems existed prior to Brexit. Brexit is the straw that broke the camel's back, in effect. But all of this means that this coming election, farmers are really not knowing who to vote for. The Conservative Party actually have given fairly good policy for farming, but it's all too little, too late. And they have lost the trust of most farmers. And they've had 14 years in power, and now at the 11th hour, they're promising to give policy which they should have implemented right from the get-go. The recent Twitter poll that Farmers Weekly did showed that there's very small support for the Conservatives. Then the Labour Party's manifesto is very disappointing. There's hardly anything in it, which means that you're voting for a sort of a blind hope, or you're not going to be enticed to vote for it because it looks like they don't care about farming or agriculture. The Liberal Democrats have made all sorts of promises, but there is a paragraph in there which says that they want to be able to give councils, local authorities, the power to buy agricultural land for building at agricultural land value. Well, obviously that rules out, most farmers are not going to be happy to sell their land for building at that kind of price. Meg. So some farmers are being enticed by reform, which is incredible, given that it's the Brexit party, Nigel Farage, who gave us Brexit, which really is the most huge problem for farming, because our market has been blown apart by an unlevel, unfair playing field, with imports coming in and undercutting us, losing our labour, losing our food subsidies, our support, and leaving us in a very dire situation. But some people don't want to accept that Brexit is the problem and would rather focus on blaming something else. Anyway, I spoke to Jeremy Vine this week about what I've decided to do. And really it's a decision which is based in pragmatism and has a strategy, but a lot of it is based on blind faith or hope, blind faith possibly, and also a thought that hopefully we will be able to elect more Labour MPs in these rural seats who will have an influence on the inevitable Labour government which we are facing. But before I play you my interview with Jeremy, I'm going to play you a clip of Alastair Campbell, who I totally agree with on the fact that everybody is focused on these MRP polls. And I actually did go out and speak to some people locally yesterday, and I agree with what Alastair says, that the polls, I think, are going to be wrong this election. I think that a lot of people don't, as we just discussed, a lot of people don't know what they're going to vote. And I think a lot of people will make up their mind as they walk into the polling booths on Thursday and make the decision then. And so we really are going into a very strange election.
Holding virtually everything in the debate at the moment is about these opinion polls. And apart from a few postal votes, nobody's voted yet. And I just do not for 1 second believe that the Conservatives are going to get virtually wiped out. I just don't believe it. For Labour to win a majority of one, they've got to get a bigger swing than we got in 1997 and Clement Attlee got in 1945. I just think there's something going very, very wrong with these polls. I could be completely wrong. And it's true that Labour have been consistently ahead. But I just wish that in election periods, we would talk less about polls and more about what the parties are saying, because I just don't believe these MRP polls, I'm afraid. I think they're absolute nonsense. And when you drill down on some of them, they do these big constituency polls. They say, oh, look, Jeremy Hunt's going to lose his seat and Liz Truss is going to lose her seat. And God, I hope that happens. And on we go. But actually, when you look down, you're talking about tiny numbers of people, sometimes self-selecting, that they're talking to. So, no, I just think we should move off the polls and talk about future of the country, the different things that the parties are putting forward. And ultimately, nobody, when we vote, when we're going to vote, nobody can vote for an outcome. We can only vote for the one candidate that we're allowed to choose.
Liz Webster and her husband run a 17-acre farm in North Wiltshire, because we're on Farmers Today. Hi, Liz.
Hello, Jeremy. Hi. It's a bit bigger than 17 acres, 1,700.
I thought I said 1,700. I'm so sorry. Okay, 17
That's
acres
okay.
is your back garden. So cattle, arable, you do it all.
Yeah, we do it all. Yes, indeed.
All right. So who's reaching out and who's making the right noises?
No one really. It's all a mess, and I think you just have to. I've made a decision to look at this pragmatically. It became obvious to me last year that Labour were going to be forming the next government, and I made the decision I'd rather be embodied within that government to influence it. And I've lived through a Labour government with a Tory MP, and I want to get what the Red Wall had in this last Parliament, that, they had new MPs who cared about and had influence within that government. And so I'm really thinking I'm better off to have a Labour MP with a big Labour government so that we've got some ability to influence. But look, there's not many farmers left these days. We used to clothe and feed everybody. And now, the big business is taking over, and, Brexit is enabling that even more. And how this impacts people personally is their communities are further dwindled away, and their public health and control is completely lost, because, as you have with your clothing, it's only the very wealthy that can afford cashmere and the best of everything, and everyone else buys their clothes from mass-produced things. And that's really the way the clothing, the food industry is going, unless we pull the brakes on it. At what point we give up and sort of, I don't know. But at the moment, we're not ready to give up. We'll keep fighting.
So you're campaigning for a Labour MP in your area because you think it would give you some leverage if Labour get to power, as looks quite likely. Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. I think in all the rural areas, that's what I think. I think that's where we're better off. There's not enough farmers to influence the vote. There's hardly any of us left. But I do feel if rural areas embrace a Labour MP, we're going to have an input to government. Those MPs are going to be reactive to us. Whereas if you've got a Lib Dem or a Tory MP with a Labour government, you might as well be howling at the moon.
Okay.
That's where my thinking is. As well as working with a Labour think tank, UK, EU Commission, and hoping to educate the Labour Party, who are largely urban, about the need for food security.
Thank you very much, Liz. Thank you.
It is without doubt a new Labour government is going to ensure higher levels of competency. It is difficult to imagine that a new government could be more incompetent than what we have experienced in the last 5 years. Additionally, I hope the Labour government will do something about the Brexit quagmire that we find ourselves in, and does something about the Brexit trade barriers. I think every business in Britain is screaming out for this, and it's hard to imagine that Keir Starmer's government is going to be in a position to resist the calls to get rid of the Brexit trade barriers. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and comment below. Let me know what you think.